It was rough for Trey Lance in week 1, and now I've seen this, kind of thrown out. Like, I saw Ben Solak, a guy that I absolutely respect, from a film, stance, talking about all the good things Trey Lance did in week 1 as well. And then everyone's talked about the weather. Obviously, in the fourth quarter of that game, I mean, you could barely even see anybody on the screen in that game. But is this just another excuse we're putting in front of Trey Lance? Are you concerned at all moving forward with this offense?
So I'm really glad you framed it that way, because I was going to do the same. First of all, Trey Lance had the second most rushing fantasy expected points among quarterbacks. So that's something. Okay, that's something that Lance drafters can hold on to. He had, I think, 11.8 expected points on the ground. That was second only to Jalen Hurts. That's expected. Okay, it wasn't actually what he scored. But I think that can be looked at as a positive. But yes, this excuse making. So last week it was the rain. What's it going to be this week? Is it going to be he didn't get the perfect game script? Is it going to be they lost an offensive lineman? Maybe Brandon Ayuk got banged up. Like, it's always going to be something. I'm telling you, Trey Lance is probably not going to get through this season. I was saying this in the preseason. I don't think that Kyle Shanahan is going to put up with Trey Lance struggling on a win now team. This is a win now. This is not a developing team. This is a team that is in its Super Bowl window, and we know that Super Bowl windows last about 15 minutes. Okay, it's going to come and go, and so I'm afraid that Trey Lance is probably on thin ice already.
Yeah, this is going to be a really telling week, I think, for Trey Lance, and a really huge week. One, from a couple angles. One is that, you even go back to that game in the rain last week. They were really kind of nursing him along anyways before the rain even got bad. I mean, the first half, he was just 6 of 10 passing for 70 yards. They ran the ball 18 times to 11 passes. Like, that was an initial signal of like, oh, we might not get there for fantasy. Like, because, unless he scores a rushing touch, like, they're just not going to put the ball in the air. And you wonder in week 2 now, how does Kyle Shanahan handle this? Because you're getting the Seahawks on a short week. You're home, huge favorites with a rest advantage. Weather's not going to be a concern. We think, at least looking forward out to it right now. Like, do you try to instill confidence in a player like Trey Lance, or do you try to just win the game? And I'm really curious to see how Kyle Shanahan handles that this week. If they play aggressively, like the Eagles, did in week 1. Like, Jalen Hurts wasn't perfect as a passer last week, but we see like the Eagles want to know what they have in Jalen Hurts. Are the 49ers going to turn into a team like the Eagles of 2021, where they just try to hide Trey Lance and win games?
Right.
Because that's going to be hard to do. It's hard to win that way. It's hard to be a winning formula. So this is a huge week for Trey Lance against the Seahawks defense that kind of was, I know the final score, they win the game against Denver, but they kind of were the defense that we thought they were going to be. Some kind of fluky red zone turnovers, like, kind of pulled the thing out, but like, they got roasted through the air in that game. Yeah. So I'm really curious to see how Kyle Shanahan approaches it, because the way Kyle Shanahan approaches this game, not Trey Lance, how the way Kyle Shanahan approaches this game is going to tell me a lot more that I need to know about Trey Lance than Trey Lance is going to.
Yeah, it's a great spot for him. I mean, JJ Zacharyson, our buddy, mentioned that Denver was top 3, I believe, in yards per play in week 1. They had the 2 goal line fumbles. They should have put up 30 points plus, obviously, against Seattle. So at home against a Seahawks defense that's burnable. If it doesn't happen this week, I think there will be major questions. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that you look at the 49ers too is they allowed pressure on 38% of Lance's dropbacks. That's 13th highest in the league, and the Bears didn't blitz one time. They're going to be facing a lot better defense than the Bears along the way here. So definitely a concerning element